Today we're going to dive into Chapter 3, Attitude, from the book The 5 Major Pieces to the Life Puzzle by Jim Rohn. In this video, I'm going to explain what I learned and explore from this chapter. So be ready to take a dive into Jim Rohn's motivation.
Today, we dive into the one force that quietly shapes every success story, attitude. Welcome to Chapter 3 of Jim Rohn's timeless classic, The 5 Major Pieces to the Life Puzzle, where we uncover how the unseen energy of your attitude determines everything you become. Asterisk asterisk, in the marketplace of life, you don't get paid for time, you get paid for bringing value. And value isn't just about skill or knowledge, it's about the attitude you bring to the table. Attitude is that unseen filter through which you interpret life, people, events, and even your own potential. It's the silent voice shaping how you respond when life challenges you. And when opportunity knocks, Jim Rohn believed that attitude is more important than facts, more powerful than the past, and stronger than education or circumstance. Because attitude is what determines how we face what happens, not just what happens to us. Every person deals with difficulties. Everyone feels stuck, overlooked, or discouraged at some point. But why do some rise while others stay stuck? The answer often lies not in what they know, but in how they think, their attitude, their ability to choose perspective over pity, growth over excuse, gratitude over complaint. Your attitude, Rohn says, is a personal decision, one that's shaped by your philosophy. If you've allowed life's difficulties to plant seeds of bitterness or resentment, it's not the difficulty that hurts you, it's the attitude that grows from it. On the other hand, if you plant understanding, forgiveness, or resilience, your garden becomes one of personal power, and that's the first great insight of this chapter. You are the gardener of your own mental soil. You can't always control the weather, but you can control what grows in you. The way you face rejection, handle success, respond to delay, or deal with criticism, all of it springs from your core attitude, and the best news, it can be reshaped. It can be trained. You can choose to interpret the storm as preparation, not punishment. You can choose to view your failures as data, not defeat. Jim Rohn puts it simply, it's not what happens that determines your life future, it's what you do about what happens. So what do you do when things don't go your way? Do you point outward or do you look inward? Because attitude is not about what the world is doing to you, it's about what you are deciding within yourself. And make no mistake, your attitude is a magnet. It attracts people, opportunities, and even circumstances. A positive, forward-looking attitude draws people in. A cynical, defeated one pushes them away. You've seen it. Two people can face the same situation, the same layoff, the same rejection, the same hard truth. One sees an ending, the other sees a beginning. Now let's take this further. Rohn teaches that your attitude doesn't just affect your mood, it affects your future. The energy you carry affects your decision making. The way you think affects the way you act, and your actions over time shape your destiny. Here's where it gets real. Most people don't lose because of external failure. They lose because they've silently given up inside long before the world ever sees it. They stop expecting. They stop showing up with passion. They stop preparing, believing, and giving, and that's all attitude, but you can change it. You don't need to wait for some big break or outside force to shift your reality. You can start today, right now, with the way you think. You see, the real power of attitude is that it's a choice, and it's a choice that compounds. Small shifts in your attitude, repeated daily, create a massive change in your life path, and this is where discipline meets mindset. When you discipline your attitude, when you refuse to dwell in negativity or blame, you build a structure strong enough to support your dreams. Let me give you an image Jim Rohn often painted. Life is like the changing seasons. You can't change the seasons, but you can change yourself. When it's winter, you can choose to grow stronger. When it's spring, you can plant with faith. When it's summer, you can protect your harvest. And when it's fall, you can reap with joy. That's all attitude. Rohn didn't sugarcoat it. He said, "Don't wish it was easier, wish you were better." That's a statement of attitude. It's the inner decision to take ownership, to stop waiting for ideal conditions, and to bring your best self to whatever life hands you. If you want life to improve, your attitude must lead the way. Think of attitude as the thermostat of your future, not the thermometer. A thermometer simply reacts to the environment, while a thermostat sets the environment. Most people live like thermometers. They get up, check how they feel, react to the news, respond to someone else's mood, and go through the day in reaction mode. But achievers, people who live purposefully, they set the tone. They decide how to feel, how to respond, and how to carry themselves, no matter what the world throws at them. And that's what Jim Rohn taught us. Your personal philosophy, shaped by discipline and awareness, feeds your attitude. Your attitude then governs your energy, behavior, and consistency, which are the real ingredients of lasting success. Here's the challenge, though: attitude is invisible until it shows up in your choices. You can't always hear it in words, but you can always see it in behavior. In how someone shows up late without apology, in how they speak about others, in how they treat responsibilities, especially the small ones. These things aren't accidents, they're reflections, clues, and they echo back the quality of someone's inner dialogue. So, how do we cultivate a world? Attitude. First, you must guard your input. The people you surround yourself with, the content you consume, the conversations you tolerate, they all either nurture or poison your attitude. If you're constantly hearing complaints, negativity, gossip, or victimhood, your mindset can't help but absorb it. Rohn said, "You are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with." That includes your mental company, what you read, watch, and listen to. Second, you must practice gratitude deliberately, not just as a nice feeling when things go right, but as a discipline, especially when they don't. Gratitude turns what we have into enough, and from that place we become more. It's hard to be stuck in anger or fear when you train your mind to find what's working, and in that shift you gain power over circumstance. Third, Rohn urges us to develop an appreciation for setbacks. Why? Because they're information. When you adopt the attitude that everything is feedback, not failure, you become untouchable. You stop being reactive and start being strategic. You realize that a closed door is not rejection, it's redirection. Remember this: your attitude is either your asset or your liability. It's either helping you build your dream or silently dismantling it. That's why successful people take it seriously. They work on it like a craft. They reflect on their reactions, check their thoughts, and choose better ones, not perfectly but intentionally. Think about the great leaders, teachers, and mentors you admire. Behind their charisma or wisdom, what you often feel most is their attitude, a belief in the good, a hunger for growth, a refusal to be average that doesn't come from luck. It comes from years of shaping and sharpening their internal world, and that, Jim Rohn would say, is the real work. He tells the story of how, when he was young, he blamed the economy, the government, taxes, prices, circumstances, everything but himself. And then one day, a mentor looked him in the eye and said, "Jim, for things to change, you have to change." That moment didn't just shift his strategy, it transformed his attitude. Suddenly, the question became, what if the problem is not out there, but in here? What if the solution isn't something you wait for, but something you grow into? That's a high-level mindset. That's personal leadership, and it's fueled entirely by attitude. Let's take it even deeper. Rohn breaks it down further. He teaches that attitude affects the way you see others, too. How you view people, whether you see the good or only flaws, whether you assume competence or incompetence, will affect your relationships, your influence, and your reputation. A bad attitude may not always be loud, but it's always felt. It shows up in the energy you carry, and people respond to it consciously or not. And the opposite is just as true. A great attitude inspires trust. It draws people in, it opens doors. In fact, sometimes it's not your resume that wins you the opportunity, it's your attitude, your optimism, your resilience, your humility, and your willingness to learn. So how do you measure your attitude? You don't. You witness it in your habits, your tone, your effort, your emotional energy. It's always leaving a trail. One powerful exercise Rohn suggests is this. Spend time reflecting on how you respond when things go wrong. Not when they go right, but when they're uncomfortable. What's your instinct, excuse or ownership, complaint or curiosity, withdrawal or engagement? This is where you'll see your real philosophy at work. That's why in this chapter, Jim Rohn doesn't just suggest adjusting your attitude, he insists on rebuilding it if needed. Because if the foundation is cracked, no structure will stand for long. And for many people, their attitude is quietly sabotaging them, not loudly enough to notice, but consistently enough to cost them years of progress, and the cost is real. When your attitude becomes cynical, you miss out on opportunities. When you expect the worst, your energy repels the best. When you live in complaint mode, you drain others and your own potential. But when your attitude is rooted in hope, responsibility, and hunger, you become unstoppable. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger, smarter, more valuable. The real difference between people who grow and people who stay stuck isn't just talent or opportunity, it's attitude. Specifically, the attitude they carry toward challenge, growth, and responsibility. Jim Rohn emphasized that while we cannot control all external conditions, we absolutely can choose the attitude with which we respond. And that choice is more powerful than we often realize. Take responsibility. For instance, most people confuse responsibility with blame, but Rohn teaches that responsibility isn't about fault, it's about ownership. It's about accepting that even if something isn't your fault, it's still your future. And if you don't own your future, someone else will. He often spoke of people who were always waiting for the government to fix something, for their boss to recognize them, for the economy to turn around, for luck to strike. But the people who win in life don't wait. They prepare, they act, they move, not because conditions are perfect, but because they've decided to create the conditions they need. That's an attitude, and this mindset leads directly to the development of character. Rohn connected attitude to character like roots to a tree. You don't see them, but they're what hold everything together. You can have skills, charm, ambition, but without the right attitude, especially under pressure, all of that collapses. Character is how you behave when no one is watching, and how you respond when everyone is watching. It's not what you say, it's what you do, and attitude is the soil from which character grows. If your attitude is reactive, entitled, or cynical, your character will reflect that. But if your attitude is disciplined, humble, and committed to growth, your character becomes unshakable. Think about it. How do you react when someone criticizes you? If you immediately get defensive or dismissive, that's attitude. But if you pause, reflect, and search for the lesson, that's also attitude. The first guarantees stagnation. The second leads to mastery. That's why Rohn encouraged us to see criticism not as an attack, but as a mirror, a chance to assess, to adjust, and to get better. He used to say, "Don't wish it were easier, wish you were better." That's a mindset only a few carry, but the people who do, they rise. This also connects to how we handle opportunities. A poor attitude sees opportunity as a risk. A great attitude sees it as a responsibility, and that shift changes everything. When your attitude is right, you stop asking, "What if it doesn't work?" and start asking, "What if this is the moment everything changes?" Now, let's talk about one of the most important but underrated aspects of attitude, resilience. Life is going to test you. Plans will fall apart. People will let you down. Effort won't always be rewarded immediately. The resilient don't avoid this, they expect it. And because they expect it, They prepare their mindset accordingly. They don't break at every difficulty. They bend, adapt, and come back wiser. Rohn taught that setbacks are part of the process, not signs to quit, but signs to refocus. Most people fail not because of a single blow, but because of repeated small disappointments they never processed with the right attitude. Each time something didn't go their way, they gave up a little more on the goal, on themselves, on the idea that it's even worth trying. But the resilient, those with the right mental posture, see setbacks as teachers. They ask better questions. What can I learn? How can I grow? What needs to change? They don't wallow, they work. That's the attitude of a builder. And then there's vision. A strong attitude allows you to hold a long-term vision in a short-term world where most are obsessed with instant gratification. The right mindset understands delayed reward. It understands that planting seeds takes effort and harvest takes patience. Jim Rohn often reminded us that we must all suffer from one of two pains, the pain of discipline or the pain of regret. Discipline weighs ounces, regret weighs tons, and what determines which pain you experience most in life? Your attitude toward work, toward failure, toward time, toward yourself. Attitude also affects how you treat others. Leaders with poor attitudes often create toxic environments. They complain, blame, belittle, but leaders with strong attitudes uplift, encourage, and hold people accountable without tearing them down. They understand that what you give emotionally, optimism, respect, belief, comes back to you multiplied. That's why Jim Rohn's teachings resonate so deeply decades later. He didn't just talk about wealth or success. He talked about becoming the kind of person who can handle success, the kind of person others trust, follow, and remember. In fact, Rohn believed that who you become is far more important than what you get, because what you get will always be a byproduct of who you are, and who you are is the accumulation of your philosophy, your disciplines, and most critically your attitude. So what kind of attitude are you building today? Is it one that will carry you through storms, one that lifts others, one that creates instead of complains, one that leads? Because make no mistake, the world is always watching. But more importantly, you are always watching, and every thought, reaction, and choice either reinforces your growth or your excuses. That's the power of attitude, quiet but loud, invisible but defining, small in a moment, but massive over time. Attitude, as Rohn saw it, was not some vague emotional state. It was a tool, a compass, and a filter. It determined what you noticed, what you pursued, and how you responded to life's events. And perhaps most importantly, it shaped the kind of energy you brought into the room or into your own dreams. Think about it. The person with a poor attitude walks into an opportunity and immediately sees the problems. The one with a strong, empowered mindset sees the possibilities and then gets to work on solving the problems. Same environment, same challenges, different results, all because of attitude. Rohn often shared this principle through the analogy of the seasons. Life will always have winter, spring, summer, and fall. You cannot change that, but what you can change is how you show up in each season. In winter, will you complain and shrink or prepare and reflect? In spring, will you plant with hope or hesitate in fear? In summer, will you protect your efforts or abandon them? And in fall, will you reap what you've sown or regret what you failed to do? The seasons of life, much like attitude, are predictable, and yet most people still live reactively rather than strategically, because it's easier to blame the season than take responsibility for how you enter it. But Jim Rohn knew the truth. It's not the blowing of the wind that determines your destination. It's the set of the sail. And attitude is that sail. One of the most powerful benefits of a well-shaped attitude is clarity. When your thinking is positive, disciplined, and principle-driven, your decisions become clearer. You're no longer seduced by quick wins or distracted by every shiny object. You can say no to good, because you're committed to great. This clarity also gives you strength in relationships. People want to follow those with vision, not just any vision, but a vision supported by integrity and belief. And where does that come from? Attitude. Your attitude toward others reveals how much you truly believe in yourself. For example, when someone else succeeds, what's your instinct? Envy or inspiration? The person with a weak attitude resents success in others because they see life as a limited pie. More for you must mean less for me. But a strong attitude operates from abundance. It celebrates others because it understands that another person's win does not threaten your own. It confirms that winning is possible. That's why building the right attitude is essential before success shows up. Because if you reach the top with the wrong mindset, success will only magnify your flaws. But if you grow your character first rooted in gratitude, humility, and perseverance, then success becomes a tool, not a trap. Jim Rohn didn't sugarcoat this. He knew that attitude isn't something you fix once, it's something you cultivate daily. Just like you wouldn't eat one healthy meal and expect lifelong fitness, you can't just read one quote or attend one seminar and expect a lifetime of mental strength. You have to work on your attitude the same way you work on your goals, your body, your business. It's a discipline, and it starts with what you feed your mind. Rohn was adamant about this. Stand guard at the door of your mind. Don't let just anything in. Choose your influences. Be intentional about your inputs, because your input becomes your internal dialogue, and your internal dialogue becomes your identity. If you're surrounded by negativity, gossip, fear, and doubt, even if it's subtle, it will seep into your beliefs. But if you surround yourself with wisdom, ambition, clarity, and purpose, your inner voice changes. It becomes a coach instead of a critic. That's why he urged people to read good books, listen to powerful messages, spend time with driven people, not just to feel motivated, but to condition their attitude, to build mental resilience, sharpen vision, and eliminate excuses before they take root. In this way, your attitude becomes your armor, not to protect you from life, but to protect you from yourself, from laziness, from fear, from distraction, from mediocrity. It keeps your goals front and center, your standards high, and your emotions in check. And when challenges come, as they always do, your attitude becomes your most powerful asset, because the storm doesn't decide whether you survive, your mindset does. That's the lesson of this chapter. You can't always choose what happens, but you can always choose who you become through it, and who you become through discipline, consistency, and the shaping of your attitude determines everything else. So ask yourself, what kind of attitude are you building day by day, moment by moment? One that protects you, grows you, and lifts others? Or one that reacts, complains, and diminishes your potential? Because here's the truth Jim Rohn knew. Success is something you attract by the person you become, and becoming that person starts with one decision: to shape your attitude like it matters, because it does. In the final stretch of understanding attitude, Jim Rohn made one thing crystal clear: it's not just about feeling better, it's about living better. An attitude grounded in discipline and positivity isn't a motivational trick, it's the framework for achieving real, lasting transformation. Think of it like this: your attitude is the lens through which you see the world. And if your lens is dirty, cracked, or cloudy with past failures and limiting beliefs, you can't see opportunities, no matter how many show up. But clean that lens, polish it with gratitude, wipe it with intention, adjust it with wisdom, and suddenly life starts to look different. Not because the world changed, but because you did. That's the real gift of attitude. It puts you back in control. Instead of waiting for circumstances to improve, you become the kind of person who creates better circumstances. You stop needing permission to grow. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You stop outsourcing your future to luck. Rohn once said, "The major value in life is not what you get. The major value in life is what you become." And the road to becoming is paved with how you think, what you believe, and how you respond. All of it flows from attitude. It's also why he emphasized awareness. You can't change what you won't confront, and most people never improve their attitude because they never admit it's broken. They've accepted sarcasm, cynicism, and low expectations as normal, not realizing those are the very attitudes keeping them from success. So, start by telling yourself the truth. What kind of attitude do you carry into your relationships, your goals, your health, your finances, your own self-talk? Is it building you or breaking you? And don't confuse temporary positivity with true transformation. A good attitude isn't about smiling through pain or pretending everything's fine. It's about choosing a response that aligns with your vision and values. Even when things are hard, especially when things are hard, that's where real strength lies, not in denial but in direction. A powerful attitude doesn't ignore reality, it engages it with purpose. Now let's talk about something Jim Rohn never overlooked, the role of standards. Your attitude determines your standards, and your standards set the boundaries of your life. If you tolerate laziness, excuses, toxic company, or unclear goals, it's not because you're unlucky. It's because your attitude has allowed it. But the opposite is also true. Raise your standards and your life starts rising with them. That doesn't happen through wishful thinking. It happens when your attitude says, "I'm done settling." When it says, "I expect more from myself, from my time, from the people around me." That energy changes the game. You stop attracting drama and start attracting discipline. You stop aligning with mediocrity and start connecting with excellence. Why? Because your attitude now repels anything that doesn't match your new level. It's not magic, it's momentum, and once you taste it, you won't go back. One of the most overlooked elements in attitude is your language. The words you speak to yourself and others are a mirror of your internal climate. Jim Rohn always advised, don't say things that don't serve you. Watch your phrases. "I can't," "I'm not good at," "I always mess this up." These are not just words, they're programs your brain runs on. But flip the script. "I'm learning," "I'm improving," "I'm capable of better." Suddenly, your brain starts looking for evidence to support those statements. You literally reshape your reality through the dialogue you allow in your mind. This is why reading, listening to empowering voices, writing affirmations, and being selective with your circle matters so much. It's not a luxury. It's a lifeline for your attitude. Because what surrounds you becomes you. And that brings us to a final Jim Rohn principle. Discipline is the bridge between attitude and results. It's not enough to think positively, you have to act consistently. A strong attitude without matching actions creates frustration. But when your mindset and behaviors align, you gain integrity, and nothing is more powerful. That's when doors start to open. Not because the world suddenly favors you, but because you've become the kind of person who knows how to walk through the door, hold it open, and bring others with you. So as we wrap up this journey through Chapter 3, remember this: your attitude is the master key. It unlocks your potential, reshapes your future, and becomes the magnet for your next level of growth. Guard it, shape it, feed it, and let it evolve you into someone truly unshakable. Because success isn't found by chance, it's attracted by attitude.